Welcome to Tractor Stats Episode 4. Let's talk about what some people would call the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the John Deere 4440. The John Deere 4440 was made from 1978 to 1982. This one happens to be a 1980 model, and they were made in Waterloo, Iowa. They called these tractors the Iron Horse series. And if you know, I always like to talk about what come before and what come after these tractors. So, if you watched my last video of the 4320, there he is, you'll know that the 4440 replaced the 4430. And the 4430 replaced that 4320. If we move forward after the 4440, became the 4450. And after the 4450 was the 4455. And then the last of the 55 series, before they went to the 7000 series, got rid of the sound guard cab, and that would have been the 7800. While the 4320 shared a lot with the 4020, the 4430, which I don't have, but here I have pictured, was pretty much a complete redesign besides some of the drivetrain components. The 4430 introduced the sound guard cab. It introduced the new sheet metal, the new front axle. We've got a nice square heavy front axle where the 20 series was kind of lax in that. We got the quad range. We got a lot of improvements, some won't agree, on the 4320. The problem with the 4430 is they had problems with the rear axle. Part of this was due to the ring and pinion set in the 4430. It didn't hold up because the 4430 had an inline injection pump on it, the same basic engine as the 4320, but with that inline pump, you could crank one to about 170 horse without a whole lot of trouble. A lot of farmers did that and started having problems with the rear ends in those tractors. So as I said, in 1978, they came out with the 40 series. They called it the Iron Horse series. The motto was the Iron Horse series, more iron, more horses. Or maybe it's backwards, I don't really remember. Maybe it was more horses, more iron, but whatever. The 4440 is, the successor of the 4430, but everything on this tractor is heavier, pretty much. Let's start with the front and work our way back. Although we do have the same front axle, essentially, as a 4430, all 4440s are going to have 8 lug wheels, where some 4430s did, but the later ones, or the early ones, didn't. Now let's talk about the fuel tank. The 4440 has a 65-gallon fuel tank. And here are the 4320 and the 4430. Now let's talk about the engine. The 4320 and the 4430 both had the 404. The 40 series got the 466 engine, which is essentially a 404 that's been bored out with a few other improvements. The 30 series didn't start real well. Part of that was the way that they had the piston rings lower down on the pistons and some compression issues and some pump issues. The 40 series much improved in the starting department. To put some stats on it, the 404 had a 4 1/4 inch bore and a 4 3/4 inch stroke, where this 7.6 liter 466 has a 4.56 bore and the same 4.75 stroke. These tractors were made in the hydraulic front wheel assist. but more common would be the standard two-wheel drive. And the 50 series would be when we saw the mechanical front-wheel drive. Where the 30 series, you actually had 3 transmissions options. I'm not going to talk about creepers, but 3 main transmission options. You could get a quad, a synchro, or a power shift. By the 40 series, they dropped the synchro. And besides, like I said, there were some creepers, but you had the main options were either a power shift or a quad. And you may know I did a video on the power shift, and I hope to soon do a video on the quad. But here's a video of the power shift transmission, the in-depth video I did. And here is the video of comparing the quad, the power shift, and the synchro, if you'd like to watch that. This tractor happens to be a quad with the 16 forward gears and 6 reverse gears. This tractor holds 44 quarts of transmission hydraulic fluid, high guard, and a power shift with the 8 forward gears and 4 reverse would hold 52 quarts. With 18,438 tires, the quad was rated at a 16.9 mile per hour road speed, where the power shift was a little faster at 18.6 mile per hour. As you'll see, we have 540 and 1000 PTO, swappable just like the 4320 and 4020. As I said in the last video, on the 4320, there's a snap ring right there. You'll pull that snap ring, pull that shaft out, and replace it with that shaft, and put that shaft up there. A little bit of fluid will leak out. It's sometimes a good idea to park it on a little bit of an incline downhill. And this one's actually still got the cover on it, where the 4320 is missing. That cover is made to go down here to keep that area clean when you're not using PTO. As you'll see, I've got a PTO seal leaking a little bit. Winter project. This tractor is 2 remotes, similar to the 4320. The 40 series would be the last tractor series in this line to come with John Deere remote ends. The 50 and 55 series would come with Pioneer ends. One of the biggest things you'll notice on the 40 series is the size of this planetary. It's a lot wider than, say, a 4430. The late ones were a little bit wider, but these Iron Horse series, the planetary thickness is a lot thicker. And if we look at the rear end, this is actually category 3, 3-point hitch. It's called a 3 narrow because it will go down to category 2 specs, but it has to be bushinged. They're category 3 pin size. And when I pull my disc mower with it, I have to bush it down to category 2. You might have started to notice one improvement on the 40 series, the accumulator, and I'll show you this in a minute, for the hydraulic seat. I'll show you that when we get on the inside. As I mentioned, the 40 series, you got the hydraulic seat. As you see, on the left's the height control. This adjustment you can lock or unlock, and it lets the seat move forward and backwards on some shocks. And here is our firm or soft ride control. As we climb up into the cab, you'll notice, besides that I need a new interior, I've added the buddy seat option. Works pretty good for the little one. I've also mounted a monitor caddy. Basically a metal shelf that goes across there. There's not much room in these cabs, so that really helps out. So let's give you the layout. First, you've got a tilt. Footwork's pretty good for that. And telescoping steering wheel. You loosen this and that steering wheel will telescope. I like it all the way out. As we go down here, just like the 4320, and they stayed with this for a while, you got your PTO, left hand, left of the dash. We've got our fuel gauge, water temp, oil pressure, voltage, transmission, and air filter restriction. So we come over here, we've got our tach and our 12-volt outlet or cigarette lighter. We've got our ether injection, our lights, off, warning, highway, and field. Our steering wheel tilt, our ignition key, our throttle shut off, that's what you pull to shut off the tractor, and coarse clutch, brakes, diff lock. And just like the old pickups, there's a high beam, low beam switch. You see, this is a working tractor. It's pretty dirty in here, and I apologize, but we're mid-season, so it stays pretty dirty. Here we have the quad range transmission with our range shifter. Park A, B, C, D. 1, 2, 3, 4. First reverse, second reverse, and here's the go handle. One thing I want to show you about the quad range transmission is if you park on a hill, and you'll see we're nose uphill, you put it in park and let pressure get it against the transmission, you're going to have a hard time getting it out of park. So the process is, as you'll see right here, put it in a forward gear. If you're going uphill, you want to take slack off the transmission. So I'm going to put it in first gear. I've got pressure out of park. I'm going to slowly let out on the clutch. And that's called the power assist park. Now let's say you're pointing downhill. Let's do this in reverse. I'm downhill. It won't come out of park. 4 synchronizers. Now I'm going to put it in reverse and load off the transmission that way. Essentially, you want to go the opposite way the tractor would want to roll. If it wants to roll forward, you put it in reverse. If it wants to roll backwards, you put it in forward. Hope this helps somebody. The first time I ran one of these, I overfilled an auger wagon because I didn't know about this. I couldn't get it out of park. As you'll notice, we've got our 3-point. With this adjuster, we can set a stop to stop at the same point. We've got 2 remotes in this tractor, left side remote, right side remote. You'll see this stop is to put it in float position or lock it out of float position. I use float position on the mower. I'll pick up the mower, and then there's our first detent to go down, but when I'm using this mower, I'll put it in float. This is the baler tailgate, lock it in, and this has detent remote. When the tailgate closes, it'll pop out. Same way with opening. It won't stay there right now, but when I open the tailgate on the baler, I pull it back. When it gets to full open, it'll pop out. Ashtray, because this is a 80 model. Smoking was pretty prevalent still back then. A few suction cup holders that actually work pretty well. And let's go up here. Now, my pattern's gone. We need a cab kit in a bad way. But we're going to have left side windshield wiper on the door. We're going to have, let's jump over right side windshield wiper. The middle is going to be our fan speed. These had a 3-speed fan speed rather than the 20 or the 30 series. Had a 2-speed. There's our cooling and our heating. So this is what I'll be adjusting. Right for more cooling, left for less. Same with the heat. And it's temperature controlled, so it actually works pretty good. Once you get it set, you don't have to fool with it very much. Not a whole lot more to talk about in this cab. Pretty simple. This little bottom door opens. There's the latch for that. And that'll swing around. You're not going to escape through it very easily or get through it, but it works pretty good if a lot of people keep a bucket of stuff there. For me, I've got a 2-gallon sprayer with water and soap. That's my fire suppressant if the baler catches on fire. One of my fire suppressants. And one other thing I want to show you in the cab, and I think will be done in here, where it says max and minimum. That's our draft control or our depth control. If you remember on the 20 series, if you watch that video, you adjust that when you're plowing, and it works with a 3-point hitch, where if you move it up off a minimum, as that plow's drafting, and you start to hit a hard spot and spin out, it actually pick up the plow and put weight on the tractor. I don't plow with this. I use a disc mower. I've got that set all the way down. I don't want draft control on this for what I'm doing with this tractor. Although these tractors look quite a bit bigger than the old 4320 over there. And they're heavier duty for sure, 3-point lift arms, front axle, and all that jazz. But really, as far as the wheelbase and dimensions, they're really not that far off. The wheelbase on this tractor is 106.7, where the 4320 is not much less. The length is 158.5. The operating weight of this tractor is 13,270 pounds, and it lists a ballasted weight of 15,775 pounds. I've actually took this tractor to the tractor pull. I couldn't pull it because they wouldn't let me pull with 42s, but I did run across the scale, and this tractor weighs 14,250 pounds. Although the tires don't have any fluid in them on this particular tractor, we've got the heavy cast centers, and if we walk around here, we've got the heavy weights on the inside, which I believe are 440 pounds. And it slipped my mind. Let me step back to the 3-point hitch for just a moment. The Category 3 narrow 3-point hitch on this tractor, the ratings for the standard hitch is 5,710 pounds. The rating for the heavy hitch would be 6,744 pounds. Now let's compare that to the 4430 and the 4320. Quite a bit more weight capacity on this 40 series. And going back to things I forgot again, although this tractor is 2 remotes, you could buy a plate that would essentially, where you could stack 2 remotes above one another, and 3 remotes was an option on these. This particular one doesn't have it, and for what my uses, I don't really need 3 remotes. A few other things to mention on this tractor is that compared to the 4320, the 30 series and the 40 series came with a wet clutch. So the clutch is hydraulically actuated through this valve right here, rather than the dry mechanical clutch on the 4320. This started with the 30 series. You'll notice that the hood area is quite a bit taller on the 30 and 40 series than the 20 series. The reason for this is to allow more room for the fuel tank, the radiator, and the air cleaner has been moved above the engine. Probably not my favorite thing about this tractor. Trying to wiggle that thing out of there. Much like the 4320 and the 4430 air cleaner setup, where you, on the other side, you take this down and it slides right out. But let me show you why they did that. That's 65-gallon fuel tank. As you'll see, it is all fuel tank up here to keep this hungry thing working all day. I could probably ramble on some more about this 4440 and some of the improvements and things I like about it and some of the details on it, but I think I've covered most of the high points. And if you have any more questions, drop a message. And if you've got time, stay and watch another video. And if you don't care, it sure helps us out a lot. Why don't you hit that like and subscribe button? Come back for more videos, because we sure do appreciate it.